Hi everybody. How's it going today? It's going good for me. Well, I thought I would share a story from my rock climbing days. Back in college, I was a big rock climber in Texas. And yes, there are lots of rock climbing places in Texas. I never thought there would be, but there is. Very rocky, lots of limestone, so no granite really, but limestone. Anyway, I went on a trip with my girlfriend at the time, back in college, and she was a rock climber as well, or I got her into it, and she really liked it. She was almost as tall as me, a really strong woman, and we 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 worked really well together as a rock climbing team. And so we went to a national park in Florida where they have lots of rock climbing, and they had multi-pitch climbing. So a multi-pitch is uh, longer than the length of a rope. So you can't climb to the top. You can't climb all the way to the top because the rope isn't long enough. So you have to, one person climbs up and they clip into anchor bolts that are drilled into the wall, into the rock wall, and then that one person stops and then holds the rope, and the one person below climbs up underneath them, and the top person belays them. And a belay is just, catch, keeping the slack out of the rope as they climb up underneath. And then that one person underneath comes to the person who's standing, who's hanging on the wall, and they come beside them, they clip in, then the original person will go up and lead the next route, the next section, until they run out of rope, and then again you belay from the top and the person comes from on the bottom. And this is the first time I'd ever done a multi-pitch climb with where you have to actually belay hanging off the wall and you're not standing on the ground. And so it's a little different for sure. But anyway, we climbed quite. I was an experienced climber, but I was a novice at the multi-pitch stuff. So there was a couple mistakes we made here that made it the story extra fun. So, great climb. It was a three-pitch climb, meaning you had to belay twice. It was three lengths of rope, 1, 2, 3, to get to the top. So I don't know, about 400-foot climb, something like that, maybe 350-foot climb. And this place was had Wacos instead of handholds. So the wall is this. So this is vertical, and then this is overhanging. And this wall was just slightly less than vertical, so that you could just barely stand up these little shallow pockets you could put your hands in and kind of cup these little Wacos. And they were just like little dishes, and you could kind of just do this inside the dish. And it was really challenging, but it was so fun. So anyway, I go up, I lead the first pitch, and my girlfriend comes behind me and belays me. And it was a pretty easy first pitch, so no problem. The second pitch was all these little Wacos, which was more challenging, and there was a lot of runouts between where the anchors were. There weren't any good places to clip in. And you kind of just had to go with it and just not have any good anchors. So I climbed that full second pitch, and it was really challenging. I had a good like 50-foot run out where couldn't find anything to hook into. And so a 50-foot run out means if you have 50 feet between your last hook, that means you're going to fall that 50 feet and then the next 50 feet, which was almost on top of her. And so when I finally got to that anchor point and I got a good anchor in, and I grabbed my rope and I pulled it up, and I was like this far from clipping it in, and I'd be locked in safe. And and I yelled down, "Give me some slack, give me some slack," because I wanted to just lean back on the rope and relax. Well, no slack. And so she uses the word honey, and we were not that kind of couple. She did not use honey as a word. It wasn't like Noelle and I. We were not lovey-dovey. We were romantic, but lovey-dovey was not our thing. And so then I instantly knew something was wrong. And so I'm hanging here with 100-foot drop as I'm hanging waiting, and the rope had got stuck, had wedged in a rock like 20 feet below her. Like the end of it had got stuck in a rock. And so she's pulling on it and whipping it and trying to get it, and nothing. It won't come out. And I'm just hanging here like, and it wasn't like I was upside down hanging like this. Like I was just barely standing, but I still had to hold on with my arms, and I just climbed for the last 30 minutes. And so it would have been nice to have a break and not be holding on the wall. I wasn't about to fall or anything. So for like 20 minutes, she's whipping the rope and shaking it, and she can't unhook and climb down there, because then if she fell, she would fall 100 feet to her death. So there's no way for her to go down to the end of the rope and get it wedged out. And finally, she's like, it won't come out. Vince, I can't do it. It won't come out. And so I had to down climb. I had to climb all the way back down to her, where I knew I did. And I was scared. And by this time, it was a lot of hiking and biking in this place too. So there were lots of people out watching climbers. And so I was like, okay, I have to down climb this thing. And I got to down climb this. And down climbing is so much harder than climbing up, because you can't see where your feet are going. You can't see a good spot for your hands. They're like, you're down here and you can't see. It's just not the same. It's so much harder. So I start down climbing, and I get into the hard section. In the middle was pretty hard, and I start shaking because I was so, I guess, scared, nervous. I wasn't really scared, but I was so anxious about bouncing off, and my legs by this time were so tired, because when you deal with something just less than vertical, everything's on your legs, and everything's in your balance. And it's great for women, this less than vertical, because women have a lower center of gravity, and they don't use their upper body strength as much. They use a lot more balance. And so for me, I started doing Elvis leg, where my legs just started shaking, and I felt like I was just going to shake right out of the Wacos and just fall. And so anyway, as I go down, I got about halfway, and my Elvis leg was so bad, and I had no place to rest, that I just felt like I knew I was just gonna fall. And so I started crying, just from anxiety and frustration and so I had this whole crowd of people watching, and I just started weeping, just like, I'm screwed. I have to do it, but I don't know how I'm going to get all the way down back to her. So as I'm climbing, I'm weeping, and just out of just pure frustration, and so exhausted and tired from climbing all day and then down climbing. And so anyway, I finally get back down to her without falling, which was a miracle. And so then I hook in again. For the first time in like an hour, I hook into the wall and just like shake my arms out and let my legs loose, and just like, oh, thank goodness. And so then I sit there for 5 minutes and take a breath and drink some water, because she has the water, because when you're leading, you don't want extra weight. So she's carrying all the water and stuff, because this is Texas, it's hot. So I finally take a drink of water. And so then I'm like, all right, let's get this thing going. I did it, and I felt a little better. So I grabbed the rope, and I went, and this is just the craziest part. And I went, okay, so you were doing this, and just like kind of mimicking to her, because I was looking up. You were doing this, and what did you try doing this? And I was just barely moving my hand, like just kind of giving her the motions, what I should do, because she's whipping it. She was like whipping it, like whipping a whip. She was really trying, and it was just stuck. So I'm kind of just going, so you're doing this and this, and as I did that, just these little movements, it just, the rope just popped out from the crack of the wall, just popped right out with me hardly doing anything. And she looked at me, and she almost started crying. She was like, I swear to God, I swear to God, I'm so sorry you had to down climb. I swear to God, if she'd have whipped, one more time, and she must have whipped it 100 times and shook it and all that stuff. One more time, and it would have come out. So I just had to laugh, like, oh my gosh, that is so insane. So then guess what? She didn't feel strong enough to do the lead. I usually led because I was a stronger climber than her, and she always top roped, which means she had the rope hooked to her, and there was something above her, so that if she fell, she only fell like a foot. So then I shook it out, got some water, and I had to reclimb that whole section, and back to that spot where the anchor was still sitting, and this time clipped in, clip, and I'm like, see? And then I climbed, and then I belayed her to get to me, and then the next section and went to the top. And oh my gosh, was that insane to down climb that, and then for it to pop out so easily. But that's the kind of life I led back then, where I really took a lot of risks with my life, and I just lived for the adventure and the fun, and bungee jumping and extreme rock climbing, where you were climbing upside down on stuff, and lots of stuff. Anyway, whitewater kayaking and mountain biking and downhilling and stuff. And so anyway, there's a story for you. I hope that wasn't too long. I just have to check the camera, but that was a pretty hair-raising story, and boy, did that teach me. That taught me at some point when I was crying and weeping and just in this anxiety, something in me snapped, and I just had to accept that I could die, and I was, that there was a good possibility I could die, right, climbing down this thing. I actually had to accept it and realize that I'm going to do this, and I could die, and I have to just be okay with that, because if I wasn't, I would have shaken right off the wall, and I would have died. So I had to, like something snapped in my brain that, and the fear, fear of life, and the fear of the unknown had to just disappear and go away. And so that was and that's happened, and I almost died several times rock climbing, where I had to accept death as a viable option and keep doing it anyway, and not stop and say, okay, I don't want to die. I couldn't do that. I was in the middle of it. And so this was like the first of me just accepting life. Whatever life brings me, I have to accept it. And this was a true experience where death was an option for me, and I had nothing to do about it. I just had to do it. And so that's kind of where I get to where I am today. Like, how do you just not afraid of this, or how can you just do that and trust in just that it's because I've experienced really almost dying, like not even going to jail or something, but actually almost dying, and just accepted it and just did it anyway. So that's kind of where I come from. And if you like these things, let me know. I have tons more stories of rock climbing and whitewater kayaking, getting trapped behind a waterfall, whitewater kayaking without a spotter, which you never ever do, and I did anyway. And having to rescue myself from behind a waterfall. Yeah, it was insane. Anyway, I have lots of stories, lots of fun stories. So everyone have a great day, and hope you enjoyed the story. Bye.